Hi, and welcome to the machine. What I want to talk about today is some things I've noticed since moving, starting work, and getting rid of social media. But before I do that, I want to make an observation about something I find kind of funny about these videos, which is that my hair is always a mess. No matter how I try to comb it or whatever, it always seems to look absolutely vile when I record these videos, and I've sort of considered trying to bring it all over the place so I can keep something interesting for you regular viewers who I see haven't yet subscribed but are somehow a little bit curious about what this online diary is. So since moving, I have been relatively busy. I started work the Monday after I moved. I have been working from probably around 7:30 to at least 5 almost every day, and I have had a lot less time for leisure. But considering the fact that I also got rid of social media, I think it's encouraged me to be more interested in self-improvement. This entire weekend, although I've hosted the movie Inception, has largely been about cultivating things that are important to me. So one example of this is that I have been cooking meals for myself. I started the first week doing a fair amount of meal prep so that I would have an interesting Indian curry, rice, and cooked chicken so that I wouldn't have to worry about producing protein because it usually takes a fair amount of time to do. This week, I've managed to get a little bit more adventurous, or well, weekend. I ended up making roasted green peppers, salsa verde with tomatillo salsa, and taco ingredients. And guacamole. So this has been really fun in that I've been able to branch out and do slightly more complicated things because I don't have to worry about not having enough leftovers to eat if I spend my time doing that. And I think having this sort of structure of producing my own meals has allowed me to get a little bit more inventive in the sorts of things that I want to do. In essence, when you build the base or the foundation of, I'm going to spend a certain amount of time cooking each week, you become a little bit more flexible in what you're willing to do and the complexity of the specific dishes. I've been getting into the habit of drinking protein shakes, having lots of vegetables, and avoiding sugar, and I'm starting to see some of the fruits of that in that I've been losing weight, in that I've been feeling more energetic, despite the fact that I've been getting up a lot earlier, which as somebody who's not a morning person is a little bit frustrating. And I've been devoting the time that I have awake, not to social media, but towards personal self-development. So I'll get up, and since I don't really have social media on my phone, I can't really wallow in bed. I can't really hit the alarm clock with anything serious happening. And so I go down the stairs and I clean up a little bit and I make something that takes a little bit of time to do. Oftentimes it's yogurt mixed with peanut butter powder, with cocoa, protein powder, and instant coffee. And I'm not going to lie, I've been having a lot of caffeine recently. And I know that caffeine isn't really good for helping you sleep. And that's one of the costs I guess I'm incurring for my specific diet. But I've managed to completely get rid of added sugar as like a prime food category for myself. Growing up, I had a lot of sugar as something that was a little bit of a comfort food. So when I was stressed, one of the ways that I would try to deal with the stress would be to eat some peanut butter cups or some jelly beans. And this coping mechanism wasn't particularly helpful in that I would still be stressed, but then I'd be a little bit more fat. So I've been doing some self-reflection recently, and when you don't have the opportunity to use fast food as a coping mechanism, you look for other things. And I've noticed that food is one of the things I've used to numb myself in the past. Another has been social media. So this kind of pushes the low-hanging fruit out of reach because I know I've made the binary choice that I'm not going to be doing these anymore. So what this has ultimately led to me doing is A, being more focused more of the time, and B, having to exercise when I'm stressed out. So, today in the afternoon, I had been doing a lot of work. I had gotten up kind of early. I hadn't really slept the best. And I knew that I needed to do something. And I'm not going to be able to watch Netflix at work. And frankly, I don't even really watch much Netflix anymore. So I went out and I did a 10-minute run. And I came back and I felt a lot better. And so when I know that the feedback that I get from working out is going to be the easiest thing to get me relief from my stress or from anxiety, I'm going to be doing that more. And so I'm pleased about this because I know that the choices that I make, the easy choice is going to be the healthy choice. And I think that that's kind of one of the insights behind Richard Thaler uh, and other behavioral economists, which is that people tend to do what's easy for them. And if you make what's easy for them the best thing to do for them, they tend to do better. One way that they tried doing this experiment, by the way, the other person was Cass Sunstein. They wrote this book, Nudge, was to consider a sort of libertarian paternalism. So maybe towards the checkout counter of a fast food place, you'd be required to put healthy options so that you have to see it on the way out. And while you still functionally have a freedom of choice, you are encouraged to act in a way that goes to your own self-interests. For people who are especially against paternalism in all forms, it makes sense why someone would be opposed to this, but it still allows for somebody who is committed to doing another decision the ability to do another decision. One of the tricky situations that happens is when it's not clear whether or not somebody has a superseding interest. It sort of relies upon this idea that the decisions made by planners are more moral and can be more tailored to people's individual situations. Something that I think that makes this type of analysis a little bit challenging is dealing with drugs that tend to make people a little bit better at day-to-day life. For instance, the ADHD medication Ritalin is just a slightly different packaging for methamphetamine and in a slightly different dose. So, um, if something is blanket bad, it seems odd that planners, A, are letting us have it for some people. Like, why would that be the case? Or B, that there's this sort of market that believes that small doses are okay. Ultimately, it seems like there's a broad both like authority problem that comes as a result of this, but also like an epistemic, like who has who whether or not the knowledge is even there in the first place. But these kind of sidestep the fundamental idea that if you make good behavior easier to do, people are more likely to do it. The example that Hamza, and his YouTube channel is an interesting self-improvement channel I watch a lot, but one thing that Hamza talks about is just how stimulated video games make your mind. You are dealing with like 5 or 6 different things at a time, and as a result, your mind is racing, you're thinking quickly, you're in need of a bunch of different events to be happening, and if you don't have these events happening, you start to get bored. That boredom is a problem because it's sort of if most of your energy or interest is relative to other things, if you've got this hyper stimulating thing that's stimulating all the time and comes with very little like intrinsic value, you run into this situation where you're not sure what you want to do. And by kind of removing these sort of quick I was thinking about this in terms of solubility actually. If you consider video games and instant gratification to be very soluble things that may have low nutritional value. They're effectively the sugars that get you started. They're addictive, they taste good, but they tend not to result in much other than empty calories, and then tend to make more healthy food taste boring. When you sort of run away from this sort of thing and you give it up as something, first you tend to be less interested in things like that because at some point, if your norm is one thing, it starts to feel overstimulating doing something. After I spent a lot of time getting rid of video games, I found that I wasn't immediately interested in doing something like that because the specific functions that I was paying attention to didn't really seem too valuable to me. It seemed to feel draining rather than energizing. And I liked doing things that sort of have a reward attached to them from building yourself up. For instance, working out is oftentimes a slow, arduous, and uncomfortable process. I did 340 push-ups today, and I feel like shit. And I'm gonna take a shower after this and go the fuck to sleep. But because I've been building this up, I can sort of see results over time, which give me hope and courage. And I start to feel good about myself over the progress I've made along the way. But you don't really get that sort of same lasting satisfaction from video games, from sugar, from social media, from porn. Um, and I think that giving up that sort of stuff tends to make you feel more adjusted and more connected because oftentimes you you only have 24 hours in a day. And if you're spending your time like watching porn or playing video games or smoking weed, you're foregoing other things. There's a true opportunity cost to what you're doing. And so I've been trying to basically eliminate the quick time horizon things and see what results from this. I've already lost a fair amount of weight and I'm already starting to feel a little bit happier despite the fact that I feel very stressed out that I'm in a new location, that I'm starting a new job, that my new job is frankly difficult for me. And I'm happy that I'm not retreating into the warmth of failure and the warmth of mediocrity. Because now I'm going to go all Ayn Rand for a second. Let me put on my monocle or whatever. It's like it's important to make something of yourself. And it doesn't feel good being pathetic. No one loves feeling weak or feeling vulnerable. And there's a strength in certain types of vulnerability. But if you don't even try to develop yourself, you look at people who are successful with suspicion and you doubt that you can do anything. Things seem so much more binary, things seem so much more impossible to move up in the world. And I think that that's an excuse that a lot of people do to let themselves remain miserable. And some people would say something like, well, life isn't fair, and life isn't fair. Um, but I don't think that that justifies wasting people's opportunities. I think it's more important to build yourself up and see what sort of thing happens. But then again, I'm not a philosopher. I did economics in college, and I work at a tech company. If you're going to be asking for advice, you should probably be asking for advice for somebody who's more successful than me. But what I would add is, as of right now, oh yeah, I'm looking at these like little muscles. Um, I have been improving my own mental health. I've been feeling happier about what I do on a day-to-day basis. I've been more productive, and I've been getting more attention, both platonically and romantically, as a result of working harder and cultivating myself. And it's been kind of a painful process with this idea of failing and worried and being worried that my socialization is awkward or uncomfortable. But I really feel like each and every time I make an effort, as I've started to do it more and more, I'm starting to fall in love with this process of self-improvement. And I'm not sure if I'm going to reach a specific outcome, and I'm doubtful that I'm going to suddenly find Miss Supermodel, brilliant brainiac with a perfect sense of humor and an amazing personality. But I would say that doing things that make you happier tend to attract people who are happier because you match them. I've noticed that in a lot of my personal friendships, I've attracted people who are similar to me in some key ways. My parents are divorced, and that's something I'm going to be talking about in the future. My dad pretty much walked out on me, and a lot of my best friends, hell, all of my best friends, have parents who are divorced, who have complicated relationships with at least one of their parents. That's tough. But I didn't ask people about that when I was getting to know them. It sort of just came up. It's like we were on a similar wavelength or something. And although I'm not particularly religious, I do think that a big part of that is people can sort of sense where you're at and like company where they're at. And so you both have the advantage of people who are similar to you, but you also have the disadvantage to the disadvantages of the people around you. The term misery loves company or one bad apple spoils the bunch both can apply when it comes to leveling yourself up or improving yourself because you sort of have a death drive to stay where you're at and to stay with the people who are on a similar level to you. So when you are improving yourself, there's this tension about what do you really want to do? And that is one of the cons of being friends with people who are similar to you. But there's no reason that you can't continue to make friends. And there's no reason that you can't continue to better yourself. Because if you build it, they will come. If you listen better, if you learn to be more authentic and true to what you want, people will see congruence. People can tell when somebody is saying something or doing something to get a certain reaction. But when you're just expressing who you are and you're not saying one thing and body languaging another, and you're truer about your intentions and what you do, people both appreciate that honesty. And it's also more polarizing in a way that's good. I recently read this book called Models by Mark Manson, which talks about how you should aim to polarize people, especially women, because of the fact that you're not going to be a good fit for everybody. It's sort of a two-sided thing in that you might be something someone else is looking for, but they're also someone you're looking for. And if you guys don't have very much in common, other than the fact that she has a really nice ass, you're probably not going to be happy interacting with them in the medium to long term. And so being yourself is going to provide tools for knowing the sort of person that you will be comfortable attracting. And that's not to say that you have to go about things in a specific way. All I'm saying is that you will be happier with the sort of person you are, and you'll be more attractive too if you are more honest about the sort of person you are. And this doesn't have to only apply to women too. I find that an act of complimenting someone and asking someone if they'd like to hang out with you is a little bit vulnerable in itself. And some people react well to it and some people don't. But it's better that you know than you don't. And it's better that you learn through action than regret and not being willing to learn. You have a lot of time in your youth to explore yourself and to make yourself a better person. And it's inevitable that you're going to fuck up sometimes. I've made a lot of mistakes in my brief 22 years on this planet, and I'm going to be making a lot more. But mistakes are part of the way to success. I've been recently reading a couple books about self-improvement that I'm in the process of summarizing and annotating, which will be discussed very briefly on this channel, which I'm looking forward to showing you. Thank you so much for listening to my show and for tuning in to my late night conversation with myself. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you. The machine out.